Evening, dear ladies and gentlemen, we are happy to welcome you today at our event. We are very happy to see you because in such difficult times, it's a pleasure to see that there is activity in different markets. So we are welcoming you today at the expert discussion, the prospects of Ukrainian leasing market, major challenges, adaptation strategies, development outlook. Today we're living in the times that are tough for the leasing industry because of the war, first of all, but the same as the whole economy, the leasing industry is going through those tough times in a decent way. And the challenge is now to preserve the economy, to preserve our economic activity, in particular at the level of small and medium-sized business that provides the greatest number of jobs in Ukraine. And at the same time, the leasing market that is really working with small business needs to participate in that to the greatest degree possible. So today we're going to discuss the challenges, the prospects of the leasing market, and the possible solutions. And also we will cover a lot of other things that can affect the activity and efficiency of further leasing, in particular for SMEs. So these and a number of other things are going to be covered within our today's discussion. So now let me give the floor to Mr. Paul Oliver, Private Enterprise Officer, Office of Economic Growth, USAID, Ukraine. You're welcome. Доброго ранку. Мене звати Пол Олівер.
Private Enterprise Officer with USAID Ukraine's Office of Economic Growth. I'm pleased to welcome you here today to discuss leasing and how it can contribute to financing for small and medium enterprises. USAID has supported leasing in Ukraine since 2017. We have provided assistance in improving the legal framework for leasing, promoting the concept to small businesses, and providing training on marketing and risk management practices. Just before the start of the war, we supplied a grant to the Professional Association of Lessors to institutionalize an advocacy group for the industry. More importantly, we continue to support leasing companies today. The leasing community plays a vital role in getting equipment, vehicles, and machinery into the hands of small businesses and producers without significant upfront costs or collateral. Leasing companies can reach those businesses that are impacted by war and get them back working faster, often within days. Leasing can have an outsized role in the reconstruction of Ukraine's cities and communities impacted by the war. We hope many of you are considering expanding your operations and in the hundreds in the years ahead. USAID Award to Best Leasing LLC that will offset costs for small and medium-sized businesses impacted by war. When USAID's financial sector reform activity issued a request for proposals for innovative ways to finance small businesses, it received 89 responses. Of those 89, one of the winners was Best Leasing, with a proposal to lease equipment to women-owned and war-impacted businesses. We are pleased that Ludmila Zolotaryova, the CEO of Best Leasing, is here today to explain the Best Leasing Benefits Program and what she sees as the future of leasing during these challenging times. Ukraine's small businesses are the backbone of the economy and the key to sustained economic recovery both during and after Russia's war. USAID will continue to work through financial intermediaries to benefit Ukraine's small businesses to enable job retention and creation, facilitate exports, and increase incomes. We want to work with and through existing business networks and channels, and especially with non-bank institutions, because it is the most efficient, cost-effective way to provide financing. Leasing companies have the local knowledge, existing reach, and staff to identify customers in need. We hope to be able to provide additional rewards to support Ukraine's small and medium enterprises via financial intermediaries. We think these grants can have an immediate impact on people's lives and simultaneously improve the financing options available to Ukrainian businesses. I would also like to emphasize that USAID's grant programs are competitive, so give us your best ideas on how to use concessional financing. Thank you, and I hope you have productive discussions. Have a wonderful day.
Дякую, пане Пол. І дійсно, зараз дуже багато є програм підтримки, і лізингова індустрія – це одна з індустрій, на якій буде базуватися розвиток МСБ в тому числі, тому що це один з найбільш прямих шляхів підтримки МСБ і дійсно купівлі обладнання, купівля автомобілів, автотранспорту. Тому дуже велика підтримка буде надана в тому числі і лізинговій галузі, і дійсно проекти USAID зараз націлені в першу чергу на створення робочих місць, а фінансування
to create jobs and financing of SMEs, while leasing that needs to be supported constitutes one of the priorities that we are currently working on. And as Paul has mentioned, this direction is going to be developed further on. And now I would like to have a presentation on the grant initiative of the USAID project for the financial sector reform. So now it seems to be fully functioning. So we would like to discuss the financial sector support programs that are currently available, to tell about the mechanisms of their operation, and focus on the challenges and the opportunities for the leasing industry. So if we have a look at the leasing picture of the Ukrainian leasing market, this is the picture which is rather interesting and which shows the sustainability of the market and the way it responds to the challenges that are related to the war. So if we have a look at the total volume of financial leasing provided by Ukrainian leasing companies, we can see that in spite of the hostilities and the war, it has not changed a lot. It has not gone down. Before the war, we used to have 48 billion. Now we have 43.5 billion. But if we take into account the losses, in particular in the industrial areas where the hostilities, we can state that the leasing industry is sustainable, and SMEs have also proven to be sustainable in the face of the war-related challenges. That's why, according to the forecasts, SMEs will become the pillar of our sustainability and of our economy, the way it is in all the EU countries, in particular after we build a new economic model of Ukraine in the post-recovery process. If we have a look at the scope and the volumes of new leasing contracts, at the beginning of the hostilities we saw a great contraction, while in the second summer year of 2021, we saw a large figure, 10 billion. In the first quarter of 2022, it was 10. But while in 2022, the business was at a loss, and nobody was thinking about development. Everybody was thinking how to keep things going, how to preserve, how to get relocated. But starting with the 2023, we can see that business started thinking about development. Somehow they coped with the logistic problems, with the supply issues, with the problems related to the loss of the sales market. They got reoriented, relocated, established new supply chains, new logistic contacts, and business starts thinking about development. We can see it from the number of new leasing contracts concluded, because it is leasing that is the litmus for the development of small business from the point of view of purchasing new equipment. If we have a look at what is mainly bought by small business by leasing companies contracts, these are mainly trucks, vehicles. So these are the things that show that prove economic activity and economic expediency. Before the war, of course, we used to have a larger share of machinery in the structure of purchasing, but now we can see that the consumable materials for business are being bought more. So we can see some growth there. If we now speak about the challenges faced by the Ukrainian leasing market, we can generalize a lot of things, but we tried to somehow group all those challenges and problems according to the categories, because these are the challenges available in the market we need to work on. On the one hand, we have growth in the market, but on the other hand, this growth should be supported by the leasing companies. And here, leasing companies are really facing a lot of problems. Well, the first of them is the high cost of external finance, of capital. So the leasing Well, I think that this is about 23, 24%, and if it's not a banking leasing company, it's really a major problem. And such high cost of capital really affects the cost of products and the duration of those products and the structuring of the products for business. So it's really a major problem as for now. The other problem is high risks for funding agricultural lessees, and they are understandable because of the mining of the fields and also logistics supply issues, because now the agricultural sector, in particular in this year, will be living through tough times. Last year we still have some elevators, some devices, but this year the situation is going to be difficult. We understand this. And leasing will also have to work for us SMEs. We'll need to rebuild all the logistic chains from the ports, reorienting them to the western border, and we are trying to ensure better processing, because we can see that even at the western border we are facing some problems because of the attitude of our neighbors. So we will need to focus on the processing for small farmers, and leasing needs to support SMEs in that respect. Also, there is another problem, which is the lack of new leased cars. It's clear the sea is closed, there are no supplies, so the issue is going to be settled. It's being settled now, but it's there. Another problem is the elevated risk of property loss as a result of war activities. The risk is quite clear. Also, the market quite often raises the problem of new regulatory requirements for the market, and I think that today we will communicate with the representatives of the regulator of the National Bank of Ukraine, and we will ask them questions that we have and the market has. And the last category of problems is the impossibility of including the amounts of reserves to the costs for the taxation purposes. But this problem will be removed in January 2024, because we will have new requirements for leasing companies. And again, if we group those new regulatory requirements, the first category is the requirement concerning the minimum size of the leasing capital, which is imposed. The second one is that companies need to introduce internal rules regulating the risk management, controlling and reporting processes. Another one is introduction of the monitoring of business reputation, professional compliance or correspondence of higher management co-owners. And the regulator will have a wide spectrum of grounds for cancelling licenses or imposing fines on the companies that do not comply with the requirements. So this is quite a new story for the market, together with a lot of new challenges. But again, that is the matter of the leasing companies and of their communication with the regulator. It's all about transparency of work. So I think that this problem will be removed, but there will be a certain period of turbulence, and the market is getting ready for this period of turbulence right now. So today you will have a chance to ask the regulator about all those things. As far as the priorities of the FSR project are concerned for the leasing sector, so one of the priorities is supporting more risky types of leasing, which are leasing of equipment like agricultural machinery and processing equipment, or riskier categories of lessees like private entrepreneurs or relocated or war-affected companies that require the utmost support now. The other block focuses on the companies which are non-banking leasing companies. We will try to improve their competitiveness, because the market is still divided into two blocks, which are the banking leasing companies and non-banking leasing companies, and it is non-banking leasing companies that find it more difficult to work now, because on the one hand there are new requirements of the regulator, on the other hand they are facing the problem with the cost of finance. So they really are an important segment of the leasing market, and they need support. And after the war and after the stabilization of the finance, they could become one of the breakthrough directions of development in terms of supporting the SMEs. We are also helping to study the experience of the EU on the regulation of the leasing industry in terms of implementation of the best practices in Ukraine. And we are focusing on providing assistance to some market players on competitive grounds. That's what we have mentioned, the grant support. But this grant support is provided on the basis of competitive principles, on the basis of the proposals that are submitted for the tenders. As far as the award process is concerned for the grants, they quite often tell that, right, there is support in place, but how do we get it? So I'll try to tell you what the mechanism is. I will focus on the first way of grants that were provided within the financial reform sector for financial institutions. So on the 1st of January, there was an announcement made, a call was announced for proposals, and you could suggest your own ideas. You could give your proposals in terms of where support could be provided, what the effect of the support is going to be for the market, for your company, and generally for the development of the industry you're dealing with. Then on the 11th of January, there was a Q&A session where we were trying to give answers to the questions. And on the 6th of February, we got 89 concepts, proposals on the possible projects. In February, March, we analyzed the proposals by the following criteria. First of all, that was all about the capacity to embrace SMEs with the relevant products, then mobilization of financial resources, and not only the resources provided within the grant, but other finance, mobilization or leverage, and ability to get adjusted to the new market conditions, ability to do scaling, and the capacity to work over a long period of time, longer than the grant period. And on the basis of the proposal consideration, we approved 3 grant proposals which meet all the criteria and which seem to be the most feasible. They got the highest number of scales. It was 4 actually, and in September 3 grant proposals were approved by USAID. I will tell you about those proposals in more detailed way. So the first one was for the best leasing company, amounting to $1 million. That grant was provided for the support of SMEs via leasing, and the main direction of the grant was partial compensation for the cost of leasing services for SMEs. Within this program, we will provide finance in the amount to about 120 SMEs, and the total amount is going to be 190 million hryvnias. So we will manage in that way to mobilize a lot of additional capital, and the leasing services will be provided with a major share of costs covered for SMEs. The next grants that were already approved, this is the grant for the OTP Bank amounting to $1.25 million, and this grant will be used for credits, for loans to cover the credit rate. Up to 7%, the rate will be compensated for the final beneficiary, and the amount of credits will be 430 million hryvnias, and also 100 million hryvnias will be provided in terms of the factoring services that are now very relevant, and the rates will also be covered. And the third grant is a rather interesting grant provided to the Universalna insurance company, amounting to also $1 million for the insurance of the harvest of small farmers. And this is the joint concept with together with Privat Bank. And it works as follows. For the companies, for small farmers who could not get credits from Privat Bank, will be provided insurance of harvest by the Universalna company, and within this activity they will be able to get some loans from Privat Bank. So in that way we will mobilize more than 570 million hryvnias for the companies that could not get those loans, by which I mean small farmers. These are the grants that have already been provided by the financial reform sector, and we intend to further expand it, in particular for the leasing industry, and the support will be expanded because the plans are rather ambitious, and the plan is to increase the support of the leasing industry as the industry that works with SMEs the most. If we speak about other support projects implemented by IFIs, we will focus on the EBRD program, working with Bank and Privat Bank in terms of financial compensation, partial compensation of the cost of lessees to be provided within those projects. And that is also the project working with OTP leasing, EBRD and the IFC. And on the part of IFC, that is the risk sharing program, and for the EBRD, that is the compensation of a part of investment costs of SMEs. And when we discuss all those projects with our colleagues, they all claim the same, that the number of financial intermediaries will increase. And this is one of our goals, to increase the finance via the financial beneficiaries, financial intermediaries for the companies that will become the basis of the new Ukrainian economy. That's just in brief. Thanks a lot. And now let me give the floor to Lyudmila Zolotaryova, who is the Top Best Leasing CEO, and she will share the plans concerning the use of the grant received within the financial reform sector.
Good afternoon, dear ladies and gentlemen. I would like to mention some figures. Actually, I have heard them for the first time today. First of all, we have got the information about the possibility to participate in the grant. And this information came from the Ukrainian Lessors Association. And definitely, we decided that we were going to participate because these were the profile requirements to the strategy and to the segment of the market we are working at. We have had some doubts whether we could become winners because it was something new and there have been no precedents for the leasing companies. Moreover, for the Ukrainian leasing companies, non-banking leasing companies, this is the sector which since 2008 has been considered by a very risky one, and that was really a big event at the financial market for non-banking institution. So our team got together and we made a decision. We participate. And today I have heard this figure, 89 proposals. You understand that we didn't know this information. And it was for the first time that I heard today that the best leasing was accepted as the first grant application. We are really happy, and we were happy in the past when we were informed that you would be given this grant. And I would like to express my gratitude to two teams. First of all, to our team. Believe me, we put titanic, huge efforts into development the idea, and we have chosen just one idea which will be submitted to the project. So I'm really grateful to the team members, and we actually are a very dynamic company. We have never stopped our activities during the war, and we had to allocate some efforts for the development of this idea and preparation of the proposal. And I'm very grateful to the USAID FSR project. There were a huge number of questions, lots of meetings. They have verified every single figure and document. They were trying to specify everything. It was a very rigorous activities, and I understood that probably the more questions we had, the less chances we had for victory. But it turned out to be vice versa. And I'm really happy that the project evaluated and appreciated our idea, our concept. Taras has already mentioned today that the idea is that by giving a grant to one leasing company, the project covers more than 100, in our case, of ultimate beneficiaries, and actually the leasing company is the operator of the grant. You now see the very idea, but the very leasing company doesn't have anything from the grant. All the funds will be given to our leasees. And this was our main idea. We managed to deliver this message, and we are happy that the project understood our idea. Here we have our colleagues from the leasing business, but we also have the operators of some other businesses, and probably and definitely they will also be involved in implementation of the program. It means you also have a chance to enhance the activity of your companies. So it's not only the ultimate beneficiary, but also we as the leasing company enhances our activity, our sales activity, and our partners as well. And finally, it results in better budget revenues, tax payments. So it will be actually included into my next presentation, but all these funds will go to the restoration of Ukraine. And now some specific information about this story. So who got the grant and who of the grant? This is the Best Leasing Company. It was founded in 2005. So it means that we are present in the market for 18 years already. We have survived through many crises, and actually we thought we have gone through everything. But the war proved different, and it was another experience for us. We are in top 10 Ukrainian leasing companies by the value of leased assets. And this rating is done by the Ukrainian Union of Lessees Association. And, well, this association includes non-commercial leasing companies. And the members of this Ukrainian Lessees Association generate actually more than 90% of leasing business in Ukraine. We have positive credit history since 2006, and we repaid 2.6 billion hryvnias in loans and bonds. About 6 billion hryvnias is the total value of signed lease contracts. More than 7,000 contracts have been signed. Out of them, we have more than 3,000 clients. And our profile, our specialty, our clients are micro, small and medium enterprises. We also emit the bonds. We keep the investment grade credit rating, and the last one was done in September 19, 2023, done by the national rating agency Rurik, and we have UAAA, and that means that we have very high credit worthiness compared to other Ukrainian borrowers of debt or debt instruments. This segment we have been working in. I'll try to be brief because definitely these challenges are known to you and you will hear about them today more. We are talking about micro, small and medium enterprises and the challenges for them. These are loss of fixed assets by businesses, business relocation, difficult access to finance, outflow of workforce from the country, and I think everybody faced this challenge. According to the statistical data as of June 2023, 8.2 million Ukrainians are abroad, and this is 20% of the population of Ukraine. And I think that the businesses and the leasing companies understand that actually it was outflow of professional and highly qualified workforce. So human resources is one of the key challenges. Also, there are problems with power supply and definitely disruption of logistics chains. So how the program will work when we are talking about the grant? The leasing company has the standard calculation of leasing or cost of leasing. It consists of payment for equipment, cost of leasing services, and probably the operator will say that the name should be different here, but we have introduced here the marketing name for you to understand that this is what the leasee has got. We also have, we are talking about registration of the leasing, payment taxes, payment contributions to the pension fund, insurance, and the leasing company also provides insurance, and definitely for example, if we see that the cost of leasing with standard calculation was 258 for 100,000, then USAID grant will fund 30%. That means that for the final ultimate beneficiary, it will be minus 180,000, and that will definitely influence the general cost of payment. And this is the basic idea. This is something that all the lessees will get that meet the requirements of the grant. The down payment is at least 20%, lease term up to 2 years, currency of financing Ukrainian hryvnia, and lease payment schedules according to the needs of the client. They may be different because here leasing is different from the bank loans. We are talking about seasonal, annuity, enhanced loan, vice versa, loans with reduced payments, so the choice is very broad. So who are our targeted groups? Micro, small, and medium enterprises. And the lease type, only financial leasing. And you also see the regions. So here you see this picture. These are the regions where we are going to cover, so where our clients will be funded. So they are located in these regions. Definitely, the occupied territories are not included. The leasing objects. We are very happy that there are no restrictions here. We know that usually the project takes into account only agricultural equipment, agro business, but this project covers many things. Certainly, the priority will be given to these businesses, but the other industries are also included. So please pay attention. Here we have trucks, commercial and light vehicles, agricultural equipment, custom machinery, trailers, buses. So all these things are included into the program, and you can actually successfully develop your business or actually restore your business. So which MSMEs can benefit from the program? Once again, micro, small, and medium enterprises. MSMEs whose owners or ultimate beneficiaries are Ukrainian resident individuals or legal entities. The focus will be on those enterprises whose owners or whose CEOs are women. It's not because of best leasing, but this is the priority of the very project. So in this case, it is just a coincidence that our company follows the same priorities. We are talking about war-affected businesses that had to relocate one's assets and one's business into the other territories. We are also talking about businesses working in critical economic sectors or those participating in the economic recovery. Here you see the list of these areas. Again, the list is quite extensive. We see that power industries there, construction, transportation, and many other areas. How the project works. We see that the leasing company manager agrees a lease payment schedule with the client. This is the standard procedure of our managers. The client submits a leasing application and the required documents according to the program. The leasing company checks the client's financial position and whether this client is eligible for the project. The client signs a financial lease contract in accordance with the project terms, and USAID compensates 30% of the cost of leasing under the lease contract. So once again, 30% of the cost of leasing is compensated by USAID. Then there is the standard procedure. The client makes a down payment, and the leasing company is making the choice. So actually, the client chooses what should be bought, and the leasing company funds the purchase agreement. So the leasing company registers, insures, and prepares a leased asset for transfer. And the final stage, the leasing company delivers possession of a leased asset to the client, and upon the end of the leasing period, transfers the title to the asset to the lessee.
What about the effect that we expect to gain as a result of all this? There are really good calculations, thorough calculations behind all those figures. These are the calculations made by our company and checked by the USAID project, which means that these are not just nice figures. There is a lot behind them, a lot of Excel formulas, tables, recalculations. So our intent is that the grant will be given to the SMEs, which will be plus 120 in terms of their number. They will get accessible finance. We will have plus 180 contracts that will create new jobs, more than 150. And the proceeds from the implementation of the project will increase for the end beneficiaries. The figure will be plus 260 million hryvnias, and you can see the multiplier coming into play there. The idea is that the company will get 1 million, but finally you can see what figures we will get. We will have increased revenues to the budget plus 47 million, and the total cost of the handed over leasing facilities will be plus 250 million hryvnias. And we will have the scaling effect. You know that this is one of the requirements of the project. This requirement is still there because it's our business. That's what we're working with now. And the project is helping us to reach a new level and to increase, to grow our business. And thanks to that, we will be able to further engage new resources just to still have this program under implementation. We hope that this program will not be completed one day, but just the opposite. It will have a new life, multiplied growth. Thank you. let me invite all of you, because you can use our QR codes, and we have the website, and there is a separate section of this project. You could take the link, you could have a look on the terms, and it was really difficult to keep this information away from our customers, not to inform the customers about that. But now the information is becoming open from this day. So starting with tomorrow, or even starting with today, we will start informing all our clients, our prospective clients. So we will inform the market, the partners, which are suppliers, insurance companies, banks that finance our activity, because this project will enable everyone to increase their activity and finally contribute to the recovery of Ukraine. So thanks a lot to the project. Thanks a lot to all the team members and to all the participants. You will have your chance, so please use the occasion. And let me repeat that, we did have some doubts, which means that everyone may have doubts, but please do participate in this program and you have your chance to win. Thank you. Thank you, Lyudmila, for a very detailed description of the product and of the project. And on behalf of USAID, let me mention that in the leasing direction, this is a pilot project, and on the basis of the result of this project, we will implementation. We will have an additional analysis made, and we will do the planning for further expansion of this support. And now, let me give the floor to Tatiana Mosychuk, Director of the Non-Bank Financial Services Market Supervision Department from the National Bank of Ukraine. She is the regulator. She will tell us about the new regulatory requirements, and after that, we may have a Q&A session where you will have a chance to ask the regulator your questions. Tatiana? Yes, good morning to everyone. Happy to welcome all of you. So can I share my screen, or will you share the screen with my presentation? What is the better option? You can actually share your screen. Yes, good. Let me do it. So I hope you can see the presentation. First of all, let me welcome all the participants of today's event, which is held in the period when Ukraine is at war. But such events are really important, and the fact that we hold them shows that gradually, step by step, the economy of Ukraine is recovering, and together with you, we are the financial fortress of Ukraine. Today we are talking about the recovery of the leasing operations, and it's important to discuss this issue because it is leasing that gives us an opportunity to engage the real sector of the economy. This is all about direct investment, which provides a multiplying and accumulative effect for the economy. What I've seen today in the first presentations, when you told what regions are covered by the leasing operations, is also very important for the recovery of the country. I'd like to tell a couple of words on what our vision of the leasing development is. Since the department headed by me has to deal with non-bank companies, I will be talking only about the figures that characterize the market of non-banking services. And here in the slide, you can see that this market is being revived, and the lessors working in the market are growing. I mean, there are more active lessors than, suppose, in 2022. Now the licenses issued to financial companies and companies that have got the status of being a financial company and which work under leasing licenses are 314 legal entities. These are 80 companies, but if we have a look at which of them are really actively working, so out of financial companies, only 9 companies are dealing with leasing. Among the lessors, which are legal entities, non-individuals, we have 33 active companies, which is more than 18 from the first half year 2022. I can also tell you that in total, If we have a look at the number of issued licenses and if we have a look at how they are used, we can say that the leasing market is highly concentrated and the 20 top companies provide for 100% of the whole leasing market in Ukraine if we speak about non-banking sector. If we have a look at the activity and at the number of contracts concluded, we will see that in the first quarter of 2023, as far as legal entities are concerned, they concluded 4.5 new contracts, and in the second quarter of the same year, the figure reached 5.4 million hryvnias. This is the volume of new agreements concluded over that period, which means that in the first half year 2023, we've got all in all 10 million. But this figure shows how the leasing market, operated in the fourth quarter of 2021, the year before the war. We can see some positive trends, but still we cannot say that we have fully recovered and that the market is really working even at the level of 2021. But the dynamics is highly positive. As far as new contracts are concerned, concluded by financial companies, they are also rising. The number is also rising, but we can see that the volume of activity, the volume of those contracts is smaller. Companies provide leasing services, and that has already been mentioned by the previous speakers. And the areas of the economy are the ones that are related to transportation, because we've got like trucks here, also agricultural machinery within the loans given, and also the loans given for cars. So here we have the highest growth and the largest number. The scope of leasing contracts, the volume of leasing contracts concluded in those periods, well, if we characterize it, we could state that during the first period of the war was going down, the market almost stopped, but gradually we can see the increase in the number of contracts and in the periods for which those contracts are concluded. So in the second quarter 2023, we can already see a sudden growth in the number of contracts concluded for the period from 5 to 10 years. And in the general portfolio, we can also see that the peak is in terms of the contracts for the period of from 3 to 5 years. As far as the risks are concerned, the risks that leasing companies are facing, and the risks that are characteristic of Ukraine, because they include military risks and war risks, and also there are some risks inherent in the activity of leasing companies, and the risk related to the forecast for the further development of this market and the appearance of some new trends. It has also been mentioned that next year will be the first year when the new law of Ukrainian financial services and financial companies will become valid, and companies that now are working as legal entities will face some challenges. They will be at the crossroads and they will have to choose how to keep working, and if they still keep working and provide financial leasing services, they will have to settle some issues and to become financial companies. And the period provided for this transition process under the law is the first half year of 2024. And all companies that are still included in the register of lessors will have their licenses re-registered at the licenses for financial companies if they undergo this change. And the companies included into the register of financial institutions will have to comply with the requirements set for financial institutions, though for non-banking financial institutions, we have a very small set of requirements. They are not comparable with the requirements set for the banking sector, and they are not comparable with the general regulatory requirements. But starting with 2024, the regulator, the National Bank of Ukraine, will be getting full-fledged information on how leasing companies are operating, which means that there will be reporting in place, and we will analyze those reports, and we will have a better picture and better understanding of how the sector is developing, how the leasing market is developing, and what is necessary to support it, and what additional risks are available in this sector. And let me remind you that, in general, the approaches of the National Bank of Ukraine are based on the idea of developing a risk-oriented approach to all the segments of both banking and non-banking sector. If we speak about risk mitigation and reduction, I can tell you that the companies that will start working as financial institutions will have an opportunity to combine the license for financial leasing and other types, licenses for other types of activity. They will be able to provide guarantees, to give loans, factoring, so there will be no limitations in terms of combination of different types of financial services that can be provided by the same financial institution. Also, let me tell you that the companies working in the field of leasing should be using their opportunity to cooperate with other companies that suppose provide insurance services, because that is a part of the system of risk management for the companies dealing with leasing at the moment. Also, in 2024, we will have another new thing for leasing companies as far as credit risk management is concerned. I'm talking here about access to the credit register and the information that could be provided from the credit register. This is the information on the credits, that the amount of which is 67,000 hryvnias, 10 minimum salaries. This is also the data identifying the data on the information on the terms of credit operations and fulfillment of commitments. Also information on the provision on the securing the payment of debts and financial operations. So I think that this is also a step forward towards better risk management that the companies will get starting with the new year if they keep performing financial leasing operations. I would like to wish all of you today to have a fruitful discussion. Unfortunately, I failed to come in person, and unfortunately, I will not be able to stay there during the whole day. But we have the representatives of the National Bank of Ukraine. We have Alexander Letov, who is the head of the Department of Financial Companies. So he will be staying with you till the end of the day, and I will probably watch a YouTube record of your discussion, and I will also figure out from this discussion what aspects seem to be the most important for the development of leasing as for today. I would also like to say that we are grateful to our donors and to technical aid projects because in such difficult times, it's not easy to support our market in terms of expertise, knowledge, best practice sharing, and financial support. This is really important. We really appreciate that. So thanks a lot for the opportunity provided to me for me to participate in this discussion. Thank you. Thank you, Tatiana. It's really all very interesting, and I would ask you to still stay for 5 minutes because we will have a Q&A session now, if you can. Please, colleagues, if you have any questions, you're welcome. Please give the mic. Good morning, I'm Olena. Could you please tell us the following? You have mentioned that the status of lessees is changing. They will become financial companies and there will be some reporting in place. But SMEs probably don't have the capacity to engage IT experts or any specialized experts. So what about this period for preparation that we still have? What should we pay attention to? Let me give the floor to Alexander. Yes, good morning, dear colleagues. Reporting is really a very important element. It ensures the understanding of the processes that are taking place in the financial market, in particular in the leasing market. And by the way, at 2 today, we will have an online meeting with the market participants, and there will be the discussion dedicated to reporting, so you can join the meeting. And to tell it in brief, I will tell you that there will be a transition period for companies, for them to be able to adjust their software for this reporting. But for leasing companies, the year 2024 is going to be the year when they will have to submit the reports the same as financial companies do it. They will have to submit the reporting that will be audited. And it used to be the case that that was rather an optional norm, but starting with 2024, that norm will become mandatory under the law, under the new law, which sets that leasing companies having acquired the status of financial companies will have more opportunities to raise capital, to raise finance. And please pay attention to Article 14 of the law on financial services and financial companies. But at the same time, they will also have new challenges and new opportunities related to internal control and other things. So we would recommend you to look through the new law once again to better prepare now for the norms that will become mandatory since from the 1st of January 2024. And as Alexander has mentioned, we would invite you to join our meeting at 2 o'clock. That will be a special session dedicated to reporting. And there the information will be provided in detail. It will be provided by the project participants, by the representatives of the National Bank. And I think that you will learn a lot of new information on this meeting, because really there are a lot of innovations for the companies that are already providing reporting, and of course a lot of innovations for the companies that are not yet providing the reporting. So we will tell you in detail. Please let me invite you once again to join that meeting. Thank you. Any other questions in the room? Please give the mic to the person. Thank you. I'm Lyudmila Zolotaryova, and from Best Leasing. And Tatiana, you are a new regulator for a non-banking sector. So please, could you share your vision of our companies? How we leasing companies are showing our discipline on the global scale? Are we disciplined enough or no, and not? And what is your idea whether we have survived, whether we have really done our best over 2024 or not? Well, as far as the second question about the leasing companies and what you experienced in 2022, what your role has been and now is, well, I can state that your role is really important because it is investment, direct investment into capital, fixed capital, into the real sector that gives the largest scale for the development and volume for the development of the market. Now, the assets of the non-banking sector are 17 if we take 17% if we take leasing companies. We can see some growth. We can see that the assets are not going down, and the non-banking financial sector is in a rather good condition. Maybe the number of participants is going down, but the assets and the quality of the services are rising, and that's important. As far as the discipline of leasing companies is concerned, probably Alexander will share it better because he is exactly the person that has to deal with getting reporting from leasing companies. He knows it better. And this year he has had a very great number of interesting cases. This year, it was for the first time that the leasing companies were submitting reports. This is the so-called FNO file that is like a balance sheet. So it was for the first time that the regulator got the information on the structure of assets of the leasing companies. That was really for the first time because it used to be the case that the reports provided by leasing companies were just brief reports which does not fully disclose the content of the activity provided by the leasing company. Well, this happened for the first time, and I cannot tell you that all the companies did well in terms of reporting, but we understood that companies are gradually taking steps to meet the requirements set by the National Bank. And companies tend to now better understand the understanding of the crediting policy, and they know what standards they need to implement, and that all improves the chances of the companies for engaging some resources, in particular those provided by donors, and it enables the companies to better communicate with providers of financial services and other service providers in the same language. So we also had to apply a risk-oriented approach and to apply some measures of influence, but next year, of course, the requirements will be more rigid. So using this occasion, I would like to address you with a statement. You know, the status of financial companies also raises not just the commitments, but the opportunities for the leasing companies, because you will be able to better communicate and cooperate with international donors. You can be able to work within the domestic programs. So the requirements that are not perceived well by the market now will gradually be understood by the market, be understood by the companies. The companies will understand why these requirements are important, and they will understand that these requirements give them a chance to transform into a more civilized financial institution.
Thank you. There are some other questions. Good afternoon, Tecom Leasing, Odessa. My name is Viktor Nikulin. Please tell us what will be the changes regarding control, inspections, and supervision, and generally with the means of influence. First of all, we are interested in inspections or checks and due diligence procedure. So, if the company complies with the legislation, there won't be any complaints from the clients. It will do everything related to financial monitoring. There won't be any changes for such companies. There will be some changes for those who will not comply to the legislation, who will not respect the rights of the client, who will not meet the regulations, including those related to the consumer rights. So there will be changes for such companies. There will be changes regarding the opportunities for the companies. For example, for financial companies, there will be the right to expand one's status at the expense of providing some other financial services. And it's very positive news because it will enable the companies to do some activities apart from financial leasing. There will be also some changes related to the in-house control and risk management system, but the changes will take place gradually We understand that the market is not ready to accept all the norms at once, because for a long period of time the system was quite liberal, but step by step we are going to approximate the market to the standards existing in the well-developed countries and that exist in well-functioning financial system. As far as due diligence checks are concerned, this year, for those companies that are now legal entities, they won't take place because such checks are scheduled when we analyze the reporting, and we have a special pack of documents, informative documents, which presuppose analysis of risks of this or that financial institution. Until the end of the current year, we are involved in this activity, and actually we are trying to prepare the proposals about due diligence checks. So for the leasing companies, the checks will start not earlier than 2025, because only reporting will be introduced, then there will be the transition period for 6 months, and in 2024 we won't have any data to do the full procedure. I would probably think even about 2026. I'm talking about regular checks, but definitely in case there are some violations, there will be checks automatically. But the less violations, the less communication with the regulator. And this is the joint task of the marketplace and the regulator, to have less communication with this respect. Thank you. Are there any other questions? Well, Alexander is here. If you have some other questions, please give the questions to him. And unfortunately, I have to disconnect. We'll be happy if Alexander stays with us, because definitely it's important to pose some questions to the new regulator. Good afternoon. I'm Yulia Vitka, represent USAID project. I'm glad to see you. Alexander, you know that we were one of the first to advocate this split and certain level of regulation, and we all understand that there should be potential supervision or regarding not some fraud and dishonest practices. But we understand that during the wartime, SMEs need some funding, and SMEs cannot wait for this funding. And our donor sets a task for us to see how the funding can be expanded, how we can remove over-regulatory burden, which may be too burdensome under wartime conditions. We understand that now the new stage will come. We cannot talk about deregulation, but are you going to do some cost-benefit analysis? For example, how the additional regulatory requirements and operational costs will be burdensome, and whether you are going to evaluate the potential role of these regulatory requirements in this situation. Thank you for your question. Certainly, any changes are accompanied by discussion and very detailed analysis of the impact the changes will have. And the fact that the market is gradually growing is positive, and we do hope that till the end of the year the market will come to the pre-war indicators. And that shows that the strategy chosen by the regulator is a good one. Under these conditions, the companies were supported by the regulator in terms of some legislative changes and in the area of market development, and it is included into the financial system strategy development. And there is understanding that the market requires risk-oriented approach, particularly within the area of supervision. Definitely, it's important to maintain and preserve the market, it's important to develop it, and it's important to understand that the market of financial leasing will enhance the competitiveness at the market of financial services, and as a result will give an impetus to the development of other sectors. Therefore, for us as the regulator, it's important to ensure that there is the consensus about these legislative norms, and it is ensured that the norms are implemented and followed by the market players. Thank you, dear colleagues. Are there any other questions? There are no questions among the audience present here, but there is also, it seems to me, online question. The question is about expanding the services, particularly about factoring services. The license should be obtained. So what are requirements to getting the license for the factoring services? Since the next year, there will be only one license for providing financial services. And as a result, the companies will be able to expand their activity onto some other services. This is number one. Number two, in order to expand one's license, one should have more capital. Currently, the law presupposes 3 million hryvnias for one license, and if these are two licenses or more, there should be 5 million or more. It is according to Article 33 on the law on financial services and financial companies. So if you look at if you take into account the indicators of the leasing companies, the indicator is positive, everything is good, and the companies won't feel any problematic issues here. It is important for companies to understand that they should develop and they should see new areas for developing their business. Thank you. We have exhausted all the questions. Dear colleagues, thank you very much for participating in our discussion. Thank you for answering the questions. Alexander, I hope you'll stay with us till the end of the discussion, because I think we are going to have more questions, and at the end of the event we shall have an open discussion, and we would like you to participate as the regulator. And now I would like to open a new block of our discussion. This is the panel discussion. We shall talk about bankers' views on advantages of bank leasing versus lending perspectives of new players on the market, available state and international support programs. And now I would like to invite our panelists, Mr. Valery Mayboroda, Deputy Executive Director, Business Development Fund, and Mr. Roman Pudlik, Head of Agribusiness and Partner Programs Directorate, Credibank JSC. And the moderator of the discussion will be Vitaly Holovachev, Alternative Finance SME Specialist, USAID Financial Sector Reform Activity. I'm happy to welcome you. I'm happy to welcome all those people present here and those who are with us online. We have already had some presentations in the morning, and irrespective of the fact that it was the beginning of the full-scale invasion at the end of the previous year, we already see some recovery of the market. And this recovery continued in 2023. We know that there were international support programs and activities. There were some targeted ones. We may say that market recovery started without some general support, and only in 2023 the state affordable leasing program was launched. And therefore, I would like to ask Mr. Mayboroda to tell us about the status of implementation of the program, Affordable Financial Leasing 579. Thank you. Thank you, dear colleagues from USAID project. It's a pleasure to be here with you and to have the opportunity to tell you more about one of our state programs. Please, next slide.
Just a couple of words about the Business Development Fund or Entrepreneurship Development Fund. You know as well, we've been in Ukraine for more than 20 years. We were founded by on the initiative of the government of Germany, the National Bank, and the Minister of Finance, but now we are the agent of the Ukrainian government. And we are subordinated to the Ministry of Finance of Ukraine. We are implementing a wide range of different programs. We've got different financial tools, which are beneficial credit, finance, grant programs, and compensation within the affordable credits program 597. We always work with intermediaries. We don't work directly because we support the entrepreneurs and the financial market, which means that we make the proposals of the financial market more interesting and more affordable for businesses. So we have got 45 banks and 7 leasing companies via which we implement our projects. Last year, in 2022, the portfolio that was supported within our programs made up 137 million hryvnias, which is quite a lot, and which means quite a major impact on the finance and support of SMEs in Ukraine. The affordable financial leasing program was launched in 2021. In December, we signed the first agreements with leasing companies. By the way, Best Leasing, TB Leasing, and Olaf Finance were among them. But unfortunately, war changed our plans. And in 2022, we didn't feel any major engagement of the leasing companies in our program. Well, there were some finance issued for OLF Finance, but there was no splash. There was no burst in this respect. And, well, the reasons were clear. It was all about the risks in the wartime. Of course, if you provide equipment, machinery in the war conditions, it's a very risky business. The other reason for that was the cost of resources, in particular for the leasing companies, because it's also clear that nobody was willing to do this. And the third reason for that is administration. You probably know that within the 579 program, the government gave us the assignment not just to provide financial support, but to also create jobs. And before the war, on a quarterly basis, banks were recalculating jobs at a company, and depending on the number of new jobs created, they reduced the compensation rate up to 5% annual. But due to the leasing peculiarities, of course, it's much more difficult for leasing companies because you need to conclude a contract and you cannot change the rules of the game every quarter. So I think that this was one of the major reasons as well. But what has changed? If we speak about the cost of the resources, we can see that the basic remuneration for micro and small business is about 26-28%. I think that this is the basic remuneration. That is something the leasing company is supposed to provide to the end businessman, and it's already affordable for finance. It's not like 20 or 22. Because of the weird growth, the basic remuneration rate also went up. But at the same time, we also increased the margin for leasing companies because we understand that it's higher than for banks and we know what the specificity of leasing is. As far as compensation remuneration is concerned, it's about 9 to 11% annual now, depending on the creation of new jobs, and the maximum amount of leasing is 60 million hryvnias for the group of related counterparties. And also we've introduced changes into our program, and we have ensured the annual revision of contracts. So I think that this will also make you more interested. And besides that, I know it, and it was mentioned at the beginning, that leasing companies have started actively using the guarantee tool. That is something that minimizes the risks. So I think that that's really the main basis for our work, because we can see that in 2023 there has been some growth and increase in the number of concluded leasing contracts. Also, within our program in 2023, we introduced some priority directions, which are agricultural producers for this sowing campaign that could have a larger amount, 90 million hryvnias, and the interest rate could be less than 5%. And by the way, in the wartime, all the programs like leasing and 579 and now factoring do not have the requirement for calculation of new jobs, because we understand that it's very difficult to work in wartime, in particular to create new jobs. And at the beginning of the war, banks normally told us that it was not generally possible to file clients. So the norm has been cancelled, and I think it will contribute to the growth. And besides that, we have added the processing industry direction to our priority directions, and Taras has already mentioned it today that Ukraine now focuses on processing because of the logistic problems. And you probably know that the 579 program several weeks ago was amended, and these amendments reorient this program for the processing industry. So I would urge the leasing companies to focus on this area. Of course, you need vehicles and trucks and machinery and equipment for agriculture, but also think about the equipment for processing, because it seems to me that this is going to be a very promising direction, and leasing companies also need to support this direction. And another priority direction was also recovery and reconstruction of the destroyed property. Currently, in 2023, as of the 1st of October, our portfolio is 1.4 billion hryvnias almost, and you can see the most active companies. These are banks like PUM Bank. It actually joined our program at the end of our program, and now it has the largest share in the portfolio. Credo Bank is very active within our program. UKRAINIAN Bank is very active. It's also growing. And I would also like to mention that on the initiative of UKRAINIAN Bank, the affordable credits program started to include supporting not only of private businesses but of municipal companies, because if we're talking about reconstruction, we would need some machinery and vehicles for reconstruction of the roads, municipal roads. You can see what the geography of coverage is. We don't include the frontline areas, but we include all the other areas. You can see that this is mainly western and central Ukraine. And also, I could tell that now the 40% of our program is micro business, 40% is small business, and only 18% or 20%, if we generalize the figure, is medium-sized and large business. So our program still focuses on its main target audiences, micro business and small business. By the structure of activities, of course, it's agriculture that is prevailing, almost 70%, and transport. And it's also clear that normally we are talking here about shipment, commodity, transport, and agricultural machinery. So this has been just brief information about our program, and I would also like to mention that the initiatives that are now being implemented by our international partners are heartily welcomed by us, and we always claim that the 579 program is really flexible. It can be combined with all the other tools, grants, and so on. The main thing is to be clear about everything, not to have any duplication. For example, if we speak about the project won by Best Leasing with compensation of the costs, we need to differentiate. We provide compensation remuneration, and from grant money you can compensate for other costs like insurance and other things. So we don't need to have this overlapping or this duplication. But if we are talking about some other tools, the situation is even better. Let's take Credo Bank and the 579 program. So they have the grant tools for compensating their investment costs, and they have access to guarantees, and they also have the 579 program, which is about financial leasing, and it makes a kind of financial borscht or soup where everything is together, everything is mixed. And in November, we're going to announce another program with Credo Bank for the compensation of investment costs. So combine it all, but just if this is compensation of the interest rate, it cannot overlap with the interest rate coverage compensation within the other tool. It could be then the compensation not of the interest rate, but of the principal, of the body of the credit. Yeah, let me ask Roman. Roman, could you tell us how state support programs operate now, and how are these programs combined with the international support programs? Because your institution does have some experience in this field, you know about this. Good morning to everyone. Thank you for the opportunity provided for me to share the experience of our institution of cooking this financial borscht, as Valerie has called it. So if we speak about Credo Bank, we are a Ukrainian bank that is part of the European bank group. That's why we are trying to use this competitive edge and to be an active participant of both state programs for business support and engage international foundations and organizations that are interested in supporting Ukraine and Ukrainian economy. If we speak about the martial law period and the beginning of the war, I can tell you that in the first months of the war, of course, everybody was in stress. Our clients and the bank itself was in stress. And the primary task for us was to somehow regulate our credit and leasing portfolio and to make agreements with our clients for them to keep servicing these contracts. And we were trying to jointly find solutions for continuing our cooperation and for recovering our work with clients, resuming our work with clients. And we had a very good signal given by the Entrepreneurship Development Fund and the government. These were the state portfolio guarantees that gave a very good signal to the market in March 2022, when the government announced large amounts of money for portfolio guarantees, and banks came to realize that they will not have to face all their problems on their own. It was thanks to that tool that in April our bank started regaining finance, concluding new agreements with clients. But nevertheless, we realized that the resources of the government are scarce, and of course the priority for the country is supporting the army. That's why we started having negotiations with international entities and looking for alternative and additional sources and channels of supporting business. And so far we've got two programs, a program with the EBRD and a program with the European Commission with the mediation of the Polish state bank, Bank Gospodarstwa Krajowego. And also, additionally, we expanded our cooperation with the Export Credit Agency. At the same time, we do realize that now we are at the stage when we are supporting the Ukrainian economy. That is a transition period, but we hope that victory will come as soon as possible, and Ukrainian economy will require not just support for its maintenance, but will require its upgrading, modernization. So now, together with our shareholders, we are having negotiations on the participation of the bank in further recovery of Ukraine and support of our clients. And here, as mentioned, leasing as a financial instrument is going to be of utmost importance. It's going to be one of the major tools for the upgrading and development of the Ukrainian economy. If we speak on the programs, we have, of course, all the programs for business support, with which are the programs 579. We are probably one of the first commercial banks that joined this program. And in general, we have probably more than 50% of our credit portfolio and leasing portfolio that we issue that is financed within the affordable leasing program 579. And in the context of this program and in the context of affordable leasing, we have been assisted by the synergy that we have in the bank and the experience of the bank's work with credits or loans 579 and affordable mortgages 579. So I think were it not for the war, we would have become the participant of this program in at the beginning of 2022, but because of the situation, the bank started working with this program only in March 2023. And the lion's share of the finance that is supplied through the financial leasing mechanism is the 579 program. And again, I have mentioned that 53% of the leasing portfolio is the finance developed within this program. I've already mentioned, but let me state once again that the state portfolio guarantees is also a very important tool that we used to make use of at the initial period of finance, and agricultural customers were supported thanks to this mechanism. And this mechanism enabled our farmers to have their timely sowing campaign in the spring of 2022, when it was of critical importance for business and for the economy. The next step for the bank was launching the search of international partners for the support to provide support to Ukrainian business. And the first partner we made an agreement with and started implementation of the project was the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. And we signed a program with it that was a risk-sharing program to partially cover the credit risks in the amount of 50%. The first tranche that was allocated for Credit Bank was 35 million euros. That was a minor contribution. We tried it out. Both parties were satisfied. And in July this year, we signed another agreement with the EBRD on 2 more tranches, each of which will amount to 50 million euros. Now we are actually going through the period of using the second tranche, and the overall volume that we now have is 85 million euros. And though, according to preliminary agreements with the EBRD, the time for using this tranche, the deadline was actually March 2024, but you can see that we have used about 85% of the money allocated to us. So we are launching another negotiation to accelerate the arrival of the next tranche for us to be able to work on an uninterrupted basis and support our customers. If we speak about the major effects of this program, I can tell that for most banks and non-banking financial institutions, the map of Ukraine is now split into certain areas in terms of the credit risk. And engagement of those credit guarantees has enabled the bank to expand the geography of covering our clients we are ready to work with. Now, the bank is not working with the territories under occupation and the territories which are in close vicinity to the area of hostilities, but suppose Sumy region was not covered by financial leasing 579, because it seems to me that we work there and we provide financial leasing services there. If we speak about the next program with the European Commission, it's more specific, more target-oriented, because the European Commission wants not just to cover the credit risks of the bank, but it wants to help in a more targeted way the companies that have been affected by the hostilities, by the aggression, or by some other war-related factors. So we need to analyze and finance those clients that really are in need of finance, but that could not have been financed were it not for those additional guarantees coming from the European Commission. And within this program, the European Commission covers 90% of credit risk. This program has been fully used because you know that the bank is ready to go to risky areas to support the clients in need. And we've got such clients, and that's why at the moment we have used the whole amount of this of money within this program, and now we are holding negotiations on the expansion of this limit, because we have proven to work effectively within this program, and the European Commission in general is also satisfied with the outcome and with the speed of the use of this program. But these risk-sharing programs were just the first stage for restoring full-fledged activity of the bank and to reach the optimal level of 2021 to the extent it is currently possible. At the same time, we realized that Ukrainian business would require not just finance, but would also require additional support. And here, what came in handy was the opportunities of cooperation with the European Reconstruction Bank for Reconstruction and Development under the investment costs reimbursement program in the amount of 20-30%. Well, the program was available in Ukraine before the war in a different format, but a lot of customers were already familiar with that program. But now it's more relevant, because clients get not just an additional benefit, but they really need the support in the current financial situation. The volume of the first program was not that high. As compared to the demand, it was 7.5 million euros. And in fact, we have already used this volume within less than 2 months, because we really felt that there is a great demand for it coming from our clients. That's why now we are at a different stage. We are waiting for the second tranche coming from the BRD, and we also hope that we will soon offer another program for the market. Valery has mentioned this program already. That is the program with another partner, and this program will support investment projects of clients and will partially cover their costs. So, to sum it all up, I would like to mention that the combination of all those programs of state support, 579, risk-sharing programs, and grant programs in the third quarter of 2023 has enabled the bank, in terms of financial leasing, to reach the level of 2021, almost. Yes, it is situational progress, and it will be difficult to keep this result, but it's of interest that you already reached this figure. Well, because of a number of factors that came into play, but if we keep working like this, I think that at least we will be able to support this mechanism of our work to a certain extent. Thank you, Roman. You are in a unique situation because you are still a bank that belongs to a foreign group, and it's all about banking leasing. So now I will give the floor to Volodymyr Rudenko, who is the head of Financial Leasing Directorate of the First Ukrainian National Bank, PUMP, and he will speak on the challenges the leasing industry and banking leasing faced in wartime. So you're welcome, Vladimir.
Thank you. Can I share my screen? Thank you, dear colleagues. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to participate in this event. I'm grateful to the USAID project for the support provided to our industry and to the leasing industry in general. A couple of words about comparison of banking product and leasing product. The net portfolio of corporate credit, I'm talking about loans exclusively, is 484 billion. This is for the first 6 months of 2023. And the volume of the leasing portfolio is about 30 billion. So we see a huge difference between the loan portfolio and leasing portfolio. Regarding the active participants of the market, we have 65 banks and 45 leasing companies, including 21 banks. And if we are talking about 579 program, the number of agreements as of the 1st of September was 229 with the banking and 1.1 with the leasing companies. So if we are talking about investment loans, as far as I understand, they make up about 12 or 13 billion. But we see again the difference between the banking portfolio and leasing portfolio. European Business Association has conducted the analysis of the state of our business under conditions of war, and we see that the business is present, it is on the way to recovery, and actually, if we are talking about this recovery, 67% of businesses need additional financial support. 5 top painful issues for our businesses are on the slide, and one of these points is low affordability of loan programs. And we see that actually about 50% of our clients need this financial support. They also need expansion of the state program 579. This is the only state program that provides powerful support to our industry and our businesses, and we are happy to participate in the program. And we understand that the state alone cannot carry this burden of providing financial support to our SMEs, and actually the lion's share will fall on the financial institutions, including the private ones and including the leasing companies. Parts of them will be bank. We have already heard about recovery of our industry and our business. Here you see the data from the National Bank of Ukraine. The leasing industry actually dropped during the COVID period, and there was a huge growth during the post-COVID period in 2021. And again, the war affected our business negatively. However, we see the recovery trend now. We see that the trend is on the rise. And we see that there is the banking leasing, non-banking leasing, according to the National Bank of Ukraine and according to our association. So if we are talking about non-banking leasing, here in this slide you see non-banking companies. And you see that portfolio of the banking leasing is 6,630 billion, and in comparison with the non-banking leasing, which is 20,740, and the leader actually takes about 50% of the market. So you see that the correlation can be compared, and we see that the non-banking leasing is on the rise and showing growth for development, and we see that this product will be developed. If we conduct SWOT analysis, our advantages, our opportunities, and the threats, first of all, banking leasing may not only offer just a leasing service to the client, but can offer the whole package of the banking product. So when the client goes to the bank, the client has the opportunity to get not only leasing service, but some other products as well. We have a powerful network of our branches, and this is a very positive leverage from the viewpoint of the opportunity to sell our products. Bank means we are a very strong expert team. We really have a powerful team of experts, and these experts are necessary elements for this process. We are present all over Ukraine, and again, we have more than 300 representatives of SMEs, and generally we have several thousand representatives. We have long-lasting funding, and first of all it is done in the national currency, and we do not need to find the resources, which is the problem of many non-banking leasing companies. We can immediately establish the unified general restriction for the client regarding all the projects, and if the client goes to our bank, the client can also get the financial leasing, can make an agreement, and get the full package of services. And finally, one of our advantages is full transparency of our business. We show the cost of our resources from A to Z. The client sees this transparency and understands that we are honest. But also there are some weaknesses. And first of all, this is low level of automation of leasing services, because for the bank it's a relatively new product. Still, we are trying to address this situation, and definitely during the summer boom, during the summer demand for these services, we definitely felt that our capacities here are quite low. So we didn't manage to fully work with all the applications. Another issue that is an obstacle not only for us, but for the entire market, these are the partner programs, which actually helped us sell our products and generally helped the businesses in general. My colleague from Credit Bank said that they have really good support programs, partner support programs, and it's a pity that not all the participants of the market have the same conditions. And if we are talking about the banks with the foreign investments, we do not have this opportunity. So if the foreign banks with foreign capital have this opportunity, the banks exclusively with the Ukrainian capital do not have this opportunity, and as a result, we cannot talk about the healthy competition. There are some restrictions from the regulator, and these restrictions are similar to those that have already been mentioned today. The regulator is really trying to impose some limitations and restrictions, and we feel it from the very beginning. Definitely, we provide all the reporting and we try to meet all the requirements of the regulator. But, well, the restrictions are just the same as for the loan products. And, well, generally, the banks have very strict compliance system. And what can be done by some non-banking institutions definitely cannot be done by such big institutions as banks. And to some extent, it also limits the promotion of our products. What are our opportunities? We see the redistribution of the market, and the previous speaker has already mentioned it. Some weak players leave the market, some other players come to the market. And we see that we have the opportunity to expand the sales volumes and our services at the expense of the weak players who leave the market. We also see capex needs in all the industries, and we are ready to deal with it. We see the opportunities for new industries development. I'm talking about military and industrial complex and medicine, and we are trying to focus on these areas. Definitely will participate in the recovery program. I'm talking about recovery of infrastructure and industrial facilities affected by the war. We also see digitalization of business as one of our opportunities. We try to decrease the paperwork, so now we try to launch paperless program. We do not have to approve our documents in the paper version. Everything is done, everything is signed with the help of electronic signature, and this pretty well accelerates promotion of our product. We also plan to develop the service regarding the leasing services. This is mainly the area of non-banking institution, but we try to focus on the service as well. And the final point is development of cooperation with the dealers. Up till now, we have not paid enough attention to the development of this channel. Somehow we were trying to focus on some other activities. But now we try to expand our presence in the dealer channel. It's not like you give us the client and we give you some bonus. No, we fund our dealers, and we have more than 100,000 clients, and we also offer our clients to dealers. And this is very mutual, very positive cooperation. So what are the risks or what are the threats? The threats have already been voiced today, but I will mention them once again. Definitely, this is the reduction of the solvency of the clients. This is decrease of business volumes due to decrease in internal consumption. This is relocation and loss of businesses. We know how many companies just stayed in the occupied territories and how many companies had to relocate their businesses to the safe regions. And this is also the threat. And these threats are still present here. We are talking about disruption of logistic chains. We are talking about our transportation points. Definitely, there is very high probability of disruption of agricultural business activities. And there is also another risk we see. This is our active position of our competitor banks. I'm talking about the banks who have tried these leasing products, who have felt the advantages of this product. Now they understand that this is a popular product, and when the client comes to the bank, the client usually asks, "Do you have leasing?" And the client understands that leasing is a more attractive product than bank loan. And now we understand that our competitor banks are really our rivals, and they are very active at this market. And definitely we are trying to improve our products and improve our position at this market, and we are trying to make this product attractive to our clients. We are for healthy competition. Thank you, Volodymyr. I have prepared a couple of questions here, but I see that we are a bit behind our agenda. Therefore, I would like to ask just one important question. If we come back to some intermediary indicators of the affordable leasing program, you saw they were just 1,400,000,000. The volume was. In my opinion, we should compare this figure not with the results of 579 program, but probably we should look at the investment segment of 579 program. If we do it, we see that the figure won't be high. Understand that Ukraine, unfortunately, undergoes two problematic issues. When 579 program was launched in 2020, it was March and it was the COVID epidemics, and the majority of funds were aimed at supporting the liquidity of SMEs. And at that time, nobody was talking about big investment goals, so it was not topical during that time. Then the war, there were logistical obstacles. And I'm sure that after our victory, everything will be streamlined into recovery and will be able to make up for the situation. At that time, liquidity will be necessary, but the majority of resources will go to capitalization of the country, to recovery programs, to recovery of the business affected, etc. And also, one of our priority activities is recovery of the affected business, and the biggest part there are investment loans. And we may probably prepare the additional slide to show what is the investment part within the program 579.
Yeah, I would like to also add to this topic of 579 in the new conditions. Starting with the COVID, we tend to work more with circulation crediting, and it's more for that than on the investment needs finance. And we need to be clear that all the clients that are financially stable could just take this credit for with a better interest rate and use their own money for something else without engaging the external funding. They could buy the machinery and equipment they needed. And the latest changes in the program 579 show that probably 579 is going back to the focus on the investment projects and not the working capital funding for investment needs of clients. And the other type, the type of credit with 5 or 7% interest rate is now becoming the best one. So I think that the share will also increase in the nearest future. The main thing is that our farmers have an opportunity to get access to this finance. Thank you, Roman. Volodymyr? Well, I don't know. Our programs, on average, have about a year and a half or even longer. It's not 5 years, of course, but still, it's rather long, a long period. We are now working on this limit. We would like to expand the period of contract for 5 years. I mean that this share, if we take the whole portfolio, is probably changing, but how could we stimulate the market players to focus more on this direction? Because even 3 years or a year and a half is not a lot. Well, you mean the credits or leasing, or you mean the period? Well, we could even speak in broader terms, both about the term, the period, and about the leasing. So these programs could be more popular and could be more expanded because the working assets are just the dominating share in finance and crediting. Well, we all understand that there is a certain margin and there is a limitation because you remember this amount of 60 million hryvnias. But these limits have been almost filled. And these restrictions, these limits are related not only to leasing products. Suppose a client has a limit of 60 million hryvnias for credits and he is interested in leasing. We cannot give leasing products to him. And the latest changes for the processing industry, that the limit has been made higher. It's like 90 or 100 million. And if we cannot give leasing products even to them if they have this limit, or to our clients if they have this limit of 60 million. Unfortunately, the sound is very poor. So when we are preparing the expansion of the program and when we are making our proposals on how these problems could be settled, we should take this into account. In general, there is no competition. The clients mostly address us for leasing products because they feel more convenient with those products, and clients already understand that leasing is very convenient. There is compensation in place. He just comes and gets the ready-made product. As far as credits and loans are concerned, the procedure is different. It's more difficult to work with credits. So I think that those conditions for loans and leasing should be the same, but the clients already understand what is better for them. And we are happy to provide leasing if all the requirements are met. As far as the expanded periods for leasing are concerned, that's what we are currently working on. But I can tell you that normally clients want to have it for 4 to 5 years. But normally that may also be 3 years because people cannot forecast for any longer period. So it's okay for them to have it for 3 years. Thank you. Let me express my gratitude to all the panelists. I hope that, suppose there are any additional questions, we will be able to have them during another section. Thank you. So, colleagues, thanks a lot to everyone. The discussion has really been interesting, and it's a pleasure to hear that leasing products do not compete with other bank products, that they keep actively developing. And now we will make a 10-minute break, and then we will have the new panel discussion about non-banking leasing company. Thank you. Dear colleagues, please take your seats for us to start our next panel discussion. And then we will take a group photo in the photo area. So, dear colleagues, now we will have a rather interesting discussion with non-bank lessors, and we will talk on the views on current market situation and future perspectives, availability and cost of external pricing, risk mitigation, new regulatory and reporting requirements. This comes about great challenges and great opportunities, taking into account that the support will be provided. So let me invite the moderator, Yulia Vitka, and the participants of the discussion are Andrei Kovton, CEO, Planeta Auto, Lyudmila Zolotaryova, General Director of Best Leasing LLC, and Anton Dedura, General Director of Eska Capital LLC. So please, dear panelists, take your seats. So let's start. We need to have another productive session, and then we will take a group photo and we will also have some networking. So, dear colleagues, this session or this panel discussion focuses on the challenges and on the solutions to the problems for non-bank lessors. We have already heard a lot of things about them today, but it would be good if our discussion now resulted in some brainstorming and presentation of your visions as to what could be done. We, as the USAID project, could then clarify it for ourselves where we could be helpful, because we are dealing not only with grants. Grants is just one and relatively new part of our work, while over the previous 10 years we have been dealing with policy issues, technical assistance, development of new regulations and requirements. That's why we could be helpful in this field as well. And also, we could be helpful in the area of interaction with IFIs and donors. We, as a project, would like to understand it for ourselves, what kind of matrix we could follow, where the challenges are, and where our potential support could come in handy. It's not that we can solve all the issues, but we can try and solve some of them. That's why it would be useful for us to get your vision. And then we will try to consolidate our efforts on the basis of that vision and go and have our talks and negotiations where it's necessary with IFIs, with the National Bank. So let's start with Lyudmila, because I saw that she had a rather general presentation with a rather good view, and then we will go over to more specific issues. Lyudmila? So here I'm already not a recipient of the grant, but I'm here as an ordinary leasing business, leasing market operator. All the more that you've heard the voice of bank leasing companies, and I represent a Ukrainian leasing company with Ukrainian capital, and this is the company that works in the segment of SMEs. This presentation will contain more figures. I will cover the problems and the challenges in the market, and I will also cover the opportunities and tell you about our vision. And by the way, I'm pleased that we have our regulator with us, so I will also address the regulator in my presentation. So let's start, and let me remind you that when the National Bank representatives were speaking, I asked a question about their vision. It was not a prepared question, but it was a pleasure for me to hear that the National Bank understands how important leasing is for financing capital investment into Ukraine. That is a really very important mission of ours. That's what we realize ourselves, and when we heard that the regulator also understands this, that's great. This means that we can work in synergy in the future. And here, let's have a look at figures. You can see the statistical data in the breakdown. We tried to aggregate them into a consolidated table to see this consolidated view. And it is in the conditions of the full-scale invasion, temporary occupation, mass destructions. We understand that Ukraine requires not just one activity, but a comprehensive set of activities and measures that would aim to rebuild the Ukrainian economy, to ensure the recovery of our capacities. And it's not only about quick recovery, but it's about high quality reconstruction, rebuilding, following the principle build back better. And we need to create capacity for further development. That's what our market should focus on. So one of the major indicators that really affects the development of the Ukrainian economy is the volume of capital investment. And let's have a look at the figures. Let's have a look at what is happening with this. Over 20 still long-term loans, not the whole volume was spent on the financing of capital investment. So what we have finally got, the bank has provided a loan for financial capital investment by 5%, while the leasing business by 3%. So that is how it all started. It started with high figures, and you can see what we reached in terms of the role of leasing in the recovery of the Ukrainian economy. Banks 5%, leasing 3%. And let me remind you that leasing for banks are different. So that's what our contribution looks like. So dear colleagues, dear operators of the market, we can be happy about that, but still, we have a lot of room for perfection. Ludmila, I suggest that you go over to the challenges because we still have other panelists, and I would like to also have a Q&A session. Yeah, so let me be brief. Yes, go over to the challenges because you're showing the data we are aware of, but you have a very good part with the challenges. Okay, let me go over to the challenges. So here are the main challenges, and let me remind you that we are talking about Ukrainian companies with Ukrainian capital that are not included to any bank groups. So the main challenges are limited access to financial resources. If we consider loans, because, you know, the major finance is about loans. So we know that after a considerable increase in the accounting rate, the banks started giving their money to the state, giving loans to the state by investing their money into the depository certificates of the National Bank or by buying the bonds. Internal bonds. By the way, I do have figures on my phone which are not on the slides. I just wanted to show those figures to you because the data is rather interesting. So the bank money invested into depository certificates at the beginning of 2022 was 95 billion hryvnias. And it increased by the end of the year to reach 456 billion hryvnias, so 5 times. That's where banks actually send their money. And here is another figure. The depository certificates, as for now, are for 466 billion, and the bonds 555 billion hryvnias. So all in all, it's more than 1 trillion hryvnias. So the banks have invested this amount into bonds and certificates. And by the way, the yield rate for the second quarter of 2023 was 52%. So that is how banks keep earning their money now. These are the banks that we are addressing and asking for provision of finance for the leasing business. And if we take their whole credit portfolio that was provided to business and to individuals, it is 1.1 trillion hryvnias. Yes, you remember it was 1 trillion there, and here we have 1.1 trillion hryvnias. And of course, we have working and non-working loans, so the share of working loans is even smaller. This is statistical data coming from the National Bank of Ukraine. Let's move on. There are some system banks that work very well, and you have already seen this, and I'm really grateful to those who have already joined this program. And we can see that such programs provide a lot of opportunities. But what happens now? System banks are normally working under the 579 program, but the leasing companies cannot get the money under this program from banks. So they can act as operators, but that they cannot get the money, because leasing companies are not allowed to get those things from the bank.
The second issue, we are trying to understand what are the reasons for the limited access to the financial resources. Very often the banks that have their own leasing departments or units do not want to provide loans to their own competitors. I'm talking about the other leasing companies, and this is also one of the reasons. Definitely not all of them, but still the majority doesn't want to do it. The banks with foreign capital, as a rule, prefer the same leasing companies, those with the foreign capital. And the typical Ukrainian leasing company is unlikely to get money from the bank. And also, in the in-house documents of both the state banks and the foreign banks, include the point that the financial sector for loans is not a priority. And this is putting it mildly. And in fact, it is just not allowed. And the banks just do not provide loans to the leasing companies. This is the part of their loan policy. And as a result, we have the second point mentioned in the slide. This is high percentage, high interest rates of getting money from the banks. Definitely, for example, if the bank, if we choose between certificates of the National Bank and the bonds with super high income, definitely, if we are talking about something which is given to the businesses, the interest rates will be high. And we also see that the share of income loans in 2022 dropped from 21.6 to it was the reduction in 10%. Finally, the third challenge, or the third problem, underdevelopment of the securities market of corporate securities. And considering the first 2 points, the leasing companies become emittents, they start placing their securities, and it is also one of the sources of getting money. And here we see the competition. We have highly profitable state securities that are guaranteed by the state. Moreover, they ensure tax privileges or tax benefits For example, there is now income tax, and definitely the choice will be made. Therefore, we have to deal with high rate in terms of bonds, and definitely the buyers of bonds understand that it should be a stable company with a very positive loan history, and only this gives you an advantage to make public offering. Well, but we're still working under even such complicated conditions. There is, again, impeded access to risk coverage tools. We have already heard about risk sharing mechanisms that are used in the banks. According to the information I have, one of the companies, OTP Leasing, was trying to use this tool. I do not know any other examples, but we understand again the priority and the size of these leasing companies. So far, this tool is not accessible for the other leasing companies. And the final point here is the complicated requirements of international financial institutions. I was really happy when we won the grant, and it was a big surprise for us, but it was not the first attempt of ours. And what I'm talking about now resonates well with our company. I'm talking about our experience, our past and present experience. So what things we faced on the way? Certain requirements to the size of one's own capital. The requirements set by the financial institutions, I think, are so high that only a few companies from those mentioned in the list can meet. Definitely the requirements are different, but the general feature is that the requirements are very complicated, and we are talking about dozens of millions of dollars. And also, the international financial institutions say, well, we are going to consider you, but only if you have some experience. Only in this case, we are going to work with you. And we do hope that after winning the USAID project, we'll have more opportunities. And these indicators show that in 2022, the leasing companies got zero funding from the international foreign institutions, and during the previous year, the percentage was just 4%. Probably we shall stop here. We'll come back to what can be done. Now you have made a very good outline of the challenging issues. This is access to funding, the first 2 points, 3 points in the slide, and the other 2 points are the risk related to competitiveness and to. So we'll come back to these points a bit later. So now I would like to give the colleagues to provide their comments of what you have just said. Talking about access to funding, the cost of the funding is understandable. It is understandable that it is not very attractive when we are talking about the securities market. But Andriy, probably you share your experience of different funding through the securities, through the and bonds. And what else you can add to this issue? Because so far, I understand we see the cost. Could you mention some other nuances at the stock market? And I see also the challenge, and the challenge is the low accessibility of financial tools, international financial support instruments. I ask to put my presentation on. You can start. Our company, Planet Auto, we also have some experience in the field, and the main issue we faced before the war is attraction of resources, because we were developing faster than we managed to attract resources, and it was actually the most pressing problem for me at that time. Here you see some information about our company. Our area is selling vehicles in leasing, and here you see the issues we deal with. First of all, we are IT companies, then we sell the vehicles, and we sell vehicles on leasing. So now the part is 85%, and all the cars before the war were sold on leasing conditions. Well, definitely it is understandable that the war resulted in termination of some funding programs, including small businesses and small companies, and here you see the figures in the slide. I fully agree that now there are two types used by almost all leasing companies. Well, definitely not all, but the majority. This is loans, corporate bonds, and some companies and our company also use the so-called securitization. This is the selling the portfolio. And I'm going to speak more about the third tool, and will add some information about the first two ones. Talking about loans, really the banks are not interested in crediting and giving loans to the sector. Now the state is doing a lot with bonds, and while we have this resolution 350, they do not have any limitations. Some don't think they are going to harm themselves and make bank invest into the real sector. Well, definitely we have to keep bees from honey. It's not interesting for the banks. Also, there is the issue with the long term. As a rule, we are talking about long-term funding programs, but there is a big advantage, a big plus, if we are talking about loans. For the banks, the product is absolutely understandable. There are experts in the area, there is the line or a range of products, and when you go to the bank, you get all the information about the loans, and you have answers to all your questions. But I also agree that with the majority of banks, the leasing companies are not in the favorites. And what is funded? Only the bank's own leasing companies, all the related companies. That was about the loans, the bonds. We have long-term experience of emitting the bonds, and we started in 2018. It was the first emission. Now we already have the second emission. We have 100 million, and I position this tool as a convenient tool for one's own funding of the company or related companies. I'm talking about those I know personally. It's not about interest rate. The point is that we do not have good securities market. The system that is functioning in the Western world is really nice, and we do not, unfortunately, have it. Well, we do not have buyers. We do not see the demand. You show good balance, you have good business, you have good figures, and you are funded by the market. So there are lots of retail buyers who buy your stocks, who buy your securities, and actually who compete for buying. It doesn't work like this with us. Before the war, there was some positive situation at the market when we placed our bonds at FTBS, and I knew who was buying my bonds. It was the first marker of market development, and then the war broke out. Who were your buyers? Some private people, some funds. We have our own experience, how we can sell it directly to the private people, to the private persons. We advertise this service, but it doesn't make lots of profit, so it's like more a voluntary activity of ours. So FTS started working, but the moment the war broke out and the National Deposit Fund started operating, we managed to repay these bonds, and actually because we had the first clients. So here you see the figures. Actually, this tool is used more as a technical tool, and also you can use it if you have to fund your related business with the funds from your current business. What about high requirements to reporting and capital? Are you talking about the Commission on Securities? Yes, lots of colleagues from the leasing market were interested in this issue because we have been dealing with the bonds for a long period of time. It's difficult to go through the Commission approval for the first time, but when you are doing it for the second or for the third time, it's easier. But you have to understand that your reporting should be 100% transparent. So it's not like 3 is put on paper and the real figure is 2 and still there is some 1. It won't go like this. You should have your equity capital, you should have clear balance, you should have a good audit, and only in this case you can expect good situation with the securities. And yes, that they will be quite expensive because you have to compete with the state bonds, and that means plus 18%. Well, the taxes are paid from your bonds and not from the state ones, but still it is a tool that can be used in some separate cases. And the third point, the portfolio. So we have been doing it since 2017. This is our model of doing business, and currently this is our major model. So we make portfolios for the bank. We have our partner banks. They give us the portrait of the client, the portrait of the agreement, the portrait of a vehicle. So we prepare this portfolio and sell this portfolio. So this is the way we work. We work with DAS, we also work with Abank, and we work with Concord. However surprising it may seem. Well, now we work with the Deposit Guarantee Fund. We didn't actually drop our clients. Well, we try to support them. What are the pluses for the banks? They immediately buy a nice-looking portfolio, and according to Resolution 350, these are the loans for the homogeneous assets, and it is much easier to form the reserves, it's much easier to maintain these things, and they do not spend resources on client attraction. And in our case, we deal with maintaining the clients. So after we sell this portfolio, we provide maintenance to these clients. We accompany them till the full repayment, and when everything is repaid, 30% of our clients actually make some other orders with us. What are the disadvantages or drawbacks? Well, you see them in the slide, and later my presentation will be available for you. I made the presentation of our product, and well, there were some agreements made. The major problem was IT implementation of the project. Lots of cases. Okay, the deal was negotiated. We have agreed about everything, the resources, the portfolio. The figures were really good. The manager of the project was appointed. The manager goes to IT, to the accounting office, and here is the stop of the project. There are some attempts for some months, and then it stops. What's the most problematic issue? Lack of standards for documentation. Well, their own accounting policy and the very communication. So when we sell, you have to send the information through some system and repayment schedules for the bank to have it in their own accounting system. And when the portfolio is maintained, we need to have 19%, it seems to me, the domestic government bonds. So the Treasury will say, well, why do we need these painful things? This is the rate we get from the National Bank. Please offer something better and more attractive. And here we also face some operational risks.
It's of interest because you reached the topic of factoring, and the leasing entity becomes the entity within the factoring relationship. So we are also working at the standardization and digitalization of factoring. So I hope that we will one day have the invoice, but we need to have amendments in our legislation, particularly in the register of alienation rights. So it's actually the topic which is on the verge between several topics. Your experience is of interest, and within the next round of questions, we will also talk it over what can be done about that and how this message could be conveyed to the National Bank or to other banks. But now let me give the floor to Anton. And please, Anton, speak about the challenges, the picture of challenges, and how you're coping with this, with those challenges. Well, thank you for inviting me to this roundtable discussion. Esca Capital LLC, since 2011, has been working with micro and small business. We are a public company. We became public in 2017 because we are the issue of bonds, and we issued several series of bonds involving public debt, and now we also keep financing small businessmen. This is the major share of our portfolio. Well, about 45% are farmers and transportation companies, building companies. And of course, over the period of war, we have had different crisis phenomena. These are the crisis phenomena in the country that, of course, do affect our activity. And I would like to cover the topic which is relevant for the whole financial sector and which is relevant for our company in particular. This is working with the outstanding debt, because we, every time when there is a crisis in the country, like the war, which was launched last year, it's not just a crisis, it's heavy economic and social situation. So we have some processes that definitely lead to the deterioration in the servicing of the client portfolio, and it's difficult to work with those non-performing liabilities. So the question is, what does the leasing company do in such conditions? How does it work with that, and what tools does it have in its disposal? So I would like to share our experience of the last year that I saw, and I would also share a couple of ideas related to that experience. During the war, many of our clients went abroad using our cars, and of course we gave the permissions because we understood that people were trying to rescue themselves and their families, and they were just using our assets to rescue themselves. After people left abroad, some of them kept paying the debt. With some of them, these were troubled assets, and we started negotiations. saying that if you don't have an opportunity to pay for your debts, we will ask you to give this equipment or machinery back to us for us to close those debts. And that is the first part of our work with the client. When the client has some problems, we have a negotiation, and mostly problems can be settled by way of negotiations, because these are businessmen, these are decent people who earn their living working in an honest and fair way. But still, there is a part of clients who consider that after some problematic events in the country, they are allowed not to perform their liabilities. So we have such clients abroad, we have such clients in Ukraine who do not perform their liabilities. So I would try to compare two scenarios for the regulation of this problem in the European countries, like in Slovakia, Poland, and how it is regulated in Ukraine. And when I tried to compare these scenarios, I saw a drastic difference, because while administering this process from our Ukrainian office, it was much easier to regulate non-performing liabilities in Poland than in Ukraine. Why am I mentioning this? Because when we have a discussion on how to reduce the cost of finance for our end beneficiary, how we make leasing accessible for entrepreneurs, we need to take it into account that the prime cost of finance always includes a share that is a kind of a risk reserve against non-performing liabilities, non-repayment or a loss of the facility or non-return of the facility. And the higher the risk, the worse the situation is. So good clients have to pay in a way for bad clients. And what about the principal difference between, let's say, Poland and Ukraine from the point of view of regulation of such situations with non-performing liabilities? The difference is that in Poland, they have criminal liability, and in Ukraine, we don't have criminal liability for that. I just studied this matter in depth, and those who kind of embezzle or misappropriate the property or the property rights of other people will have to face criminal liability for 3 years, and if that is not property owned by somebody, by property that has been assigned to you, you will have it up to 5 years. So if you have stolen a vehicle without documents, the situation is the same as when you have leased a car, which you do not give back. So I had a look at the court practice, and I saw how it was all regulated in Poland 10 years ago. They had a lot of precedents, court precedents, related to bringing non-payers to liability. In Ukraine, I didn't find any practice like this, and the problem is that when, together with the Association of Lessors, we were trying to amend the law on financial leasing, we were trying to include into our recommendations the issue of criminal responsibility, criminal liability of lessees in case of non-performing liabilities. When they keep this vehicles or machinery, which they have to give back in case they don't pay. But unfortunately, during the final round of voting, all those items were excluded, and the period of regulation was extended from 30 to 60 days, which means that their position of leasing companies became even weaker in terms of advocating their right to the regulation of their non-performing liabilities. It's a difficult topic. While today our meeting is rather more optimistic, and we can see a lot of optimism because there is a lot of support provided to this industry, and I'm happy that independent leasing companies that are not members of bank groups get this support. It's great. But we should also remember that we are working within a certain legislative framework, and not everything depends on the leasing company. A lot depends on the state, on the lawmaker. So it's a challenge. we are now facing, and we have to do something about it. We, of course, need to have some improvements in this respect. Probably with the help of IFIs that help developing our financial sector, maybe we could improve something. This is my message. Thank you, Anton. Well, we were also involved in the development of the draft law on leasing, and from what I've heard from you, I can see that the problem is in the legislative framework. And again, this is one of the issues that could be further analyzed and advocated. We have a lawyer here in the room, so in case you have some ideas or proposals for the legislative regulation of this issue, we could also include it into our work, and we could start negotiations with the Committee of the Verkhovna Rada on Finance. They are ready to cooperation. That's why, in fact, this comes as a call to other participants. If you have any legislative suggestions which are really important, we are ready to work with this. And legislation is one block, and the regulatory framework is another block that we will have to work on. And in the project, we would also like to have a comparative analysis of the leasing industry of Ukraine and European countries, some selected countries where leasing is well developed, in particular in Poland. And we could have a look at their scenario and probably learn some lessons, even in the context of deregulation. And the next round of questions will be dedicated to the actions that could be taken in order to solve those problems that you have outlined. Again, it would be good if we use the channels of the association and the channels different marketplaces have to convey the message to the banking community, to the national bank, to the government where it's necessary. And I generally see three major units or blocks of questions, and I would ask you to share your ideas on each block. What proposals could be suggested or could be made? The first block is access to finance. And here we're mainly talking about banks because we can hardly work with the stock exchange market. The other block is risk sharing, which are the risk sharing tools, and generally your wishes, your recommendations for grant programs and international programs. And the third block is about regulation. In case you have any recommendations for the legislation, it would also be good to hear them. And by the way, Lyudmila, we can start with you. Maybe you have the ready-made comments or wishes concerning the future programs because you have already gone through this path. So access to finance, your proposals, risk sharing and grant programs, your suggestions, and regulatory block. Well, I would like to show my presentation once again because I've got some slides dedicated to those blocks. So who could support the leasing companies, right? That's what I have in my slides. And by the way, I'd like to express my gratitude to the colleagues for developing the technologies for the leasing market. You can see that we are guarantors, and we are pleased to see that colleagues do understand that it is the path that we are opening up for them. And it's of interest how you combined within one discussion the bond issuing companies, because we have also issued bonds for the amount of 360 million hryvnias, starting with 2011 we did this. And over the whole period, over 18 years of our work, we have not used this channel. Well, probably you cannot call it securitization because issuance of that's only about the issuance of bonds for the pool of some assets. I would call it, no, I'm talking about sales. Yes, of course. I'm talking about the second tool because not everyone uses, not all leasing companies use this tool. This is a technologically complicated tool. Yes, that's why AT experience is always going ahead, and we will use this positive experience in the future, I hope. Okay, so my presentation is on the screen. So, of course, First of all, we would like to address our regulator. Oh no, probably the slide before this one. Yes, this is the one. Because I have to start with the regulator. So, our call for the National Bank, if Alexander is still with us, so he will probably pay attention to this. The first thing we would like to have is reduction of the risks and requirements set by the regulation in terms of the reservation made for Ukrainian banks in the process of leasing company crediting, because that limits the loans that are given to the leasing companies. Well, the second point, in a way, follows the first one. This is adaptation of the methodology of financial condition assessment with due account of the specificity of leasing, because we are now assessed in the same way as all other companies, but it's wrong. It's a wrong approach. We are leasing companies are different, and of course, this inclusion of the specificity would lead to a different approach, and now sometimes banks limit their crediting because they need to have set high reserves, and it's not beneficial for them, so they don't want to do this. And another point, which is very simple for the NBU, but effort needs to be taken, this is creation of the positive image of lessors. We all know about banks. We know what kind of banks we have, with what volumes of money they are working, but nobody knows about leasing companies. Our clients, our partners, operators know about us, but otherwise people have scarce information, limited information about lessors. All the more that nobody is trying to promote the idea that leasing is a very good and reliable tool that can be trusted side by side with bank crediting. There is some rating, but this rating is produced by the association, the Profile Association, the Ukrainian Association of Lessors. So we are addressing the National Bank, the regulator, because it is the National Bank that can actually create this positive image, and it could promote the activity of lessors and foreign banks, foreign institutions. And this would lead to the increase in the volume of financial resources that are allocated. And also another point here is provision of assistance in making contacts. We, operators of leasing companies, do not know about all available programs. We understand that these programs are in the websites of different companies, but we are facing so much information that it's very difficult sometimes to find a specific program you need and you could contact. You either need to spend additional resources on this search, or do it in some other way. So we would be grateful if you could inform us and engage us. By engagement, I mean that in these programs you should write including for leasing companies, because quite often you tend to forget about us. Well, that's it. As far as risk sharing is concerned, I've actually presented my thoughts. There is no access so far because the requirements are rather strict. Maybe you could tell a couple of words on the grant programs. Are you satisfied with everything? I mean, the parameters of those programs? Well, we were the pioneers. And even for the USAID company, leasing came as a new topic. And for whom was it a new topic? No, I mean that it was new in terms of details, because you provide finance, you know what leasing is, but when you go deeper and when you immerse into that, it's like, cooking this leasing borscht. What it consists of, what ingredients are there, what the risks are, what do you do in this case, what do you do in that case, how to compensate. We are accustomed to introducing no changes, but This flexibility is important because in this way you are kind of tying the programs to the leasing business and to its specificity. So now it's going to be easier because some items that do not refer to the leasing companies will not be included into the grant agreement. You know, that is the document in English for about 100 pages, but these are technical issues. But historically, USAID grants are not for financial beneficiaries. Yeah, that's what I mean. It's mostly for CSOs, so that is a non-typical agreement or grant program for financial organizations provided by USAID. Yes, that's why I claim that there was a huge work done. And concerning the two latest items that you mentioned, like image and contacts, well, that's probably the role not that much of the National Bank of Ukraine, but the association as well. And you also, you as the participants of the market, also need to work more in this respect. And last year we used to have a lot of awareness-raising campaigns with brochures, leaflets, meetings with businesses. And as far as international technical aid programs are concerned, we also tend to consolidate this information. We have got a vendor and a service provider that will keep collecting this information and updating it, and also informing SMEs about those programs, inform financial intermediaries. So as far as the last two items are concerned, we also engaged in that work, and we hope that the association will also become more active in that.
Well, we have got the information about the grants directly from the association. So the symbiosis is in progress. Andriy, could you please provide your comment, because you have a different experience? So what are the practical steps to be taken in order to improve the situation? What are the easiest steps that might be taken and should be taken by the banks? Definitely the price for these deposit certificates will not always be like this, and it will be necessary to find where you can put your excessive resources. Start thinking over your structure. Who will deal with cooperation with the market of leasing companies? Because these are the leasing companies who are working instead of you. They are trying to find their clients. They are preparing some good portfolios, and they are responsible for these portfolios. But in the banks, there are no experts who deal with this market. I'm talking about providing loans or refunding, or even providing some services. In the best possible cases, these are just managers, and they cannot resolve even half of the questions that appear in the cooperation between the bank and the leasing company. And I'm saying it as the banker with lots of experience. The National Bank of Ukraine, apart from changes to the Resolution 351, it is also possible to make it easier to buy companies that are under the supervision of the National Bank of Ukraine. Why one cannot buy within some capital, some bonds, or for example, the insurance companies can also invest into this and buy the securities on some very good conditions. This is the second proposal. And the third one, at the beginning of the war, we have already had a meeting with the bank sector, and they said it is not regulated. So 1 year and a half has passed, and nobody deals with the issue. When it was necessary to provide support to the banks, the National Bank introduced some refunding or refinancing, and they used the procedures which can be applied to some other financial companies. So actually we also could use our assets using some collateral and get refinancing in case of necessity. So I think the National Bank should develop the refinancing mechanisms that will be used not only to the banks, because the available refunding tools were developed for the banks. Now we have the insurance companies, the financial companies, the leasing companies, and the procedure is still the same. So nobody is addressing the point. So these are the proposals on my part. Yeah, they're really important, and we are taking notes. And Anton, what's your opinion? Ludmila provided a very clear view of the independent leasing company, which is not part of the bank group. So these painful issues she has voiced are just the same for us. These are the challenges we face every day. Talking about additional tools that may be interesting for us and for us to be able to fund our clients is the possibility to attract foreign funds. This was our experience before the war. We have spent lots of time on attracting foreign funding. It is a complicated task, unfortunately, because the profile of Ukraine's state is a risky one, and foreign just players looked at Ukrainian corporate borrowers with a very rigorous attention to details, and they were not willing to cooperate with us. And during the war, the risk profile is even higher. But probably with the European Investment Fund, we can develop some programs that will enable us as the players of the market to attract foreign capital. We cannot change the situation inside the country because, well, it's like this. If we can offer some competitive conditions, well, the state will work with us. We have been working with more than 20 Ukrainian banks. Unfortunately, Ukrainian banking system is limited because the limits for the borrower are quite low. And in order to scale up your funding, you definitely have to go to the external markets. And here we face this issue of high risk of Ukraine as a country, and it would be good if the risks for foreign creditors might be reduced. It will seriously help our situation. Probably, again, you all answer the question. Have you discussed the opportunity to create the pool of companies in order to talk at the international market, particularly in order to discuss the guarantees? Because probably if we take all these companies separately, they won't be interesting for foreign investors. If we are talking about portfolio guarantees or ensuring the military risks, you work a lot with property, and here insurance from war-related risks may be a systematic issue. So, is it a viable idea? Ludmila? Well, we have not discussed this. I think our companies and Andrei and me and Anton were trying to stabilize our company. So our only task was survival in 2022, development and growth in 2023. But this is an interesting idea because the companies and the colleagues are trying to find new opportunities, and they are trying to enter the international market. And in case there are proposals about pooling our proposals, I think will join. Andrei, Anton, would you like to mention anything else? And I would like to ask if Alexander is here. No, he's not with us anymore. I have just a tiny remark. Why Ukrainian companies should join their efforts because, well, the minimum limit is 10 million euros or 50 million euros for the borrower. So why can't we make a pool? On the one hand, we are competitors, but on the other hand, when you look at the market, in Ukraine, the leasing portfolio market is just a bit more than 1 billion euro, and in Poland it is 36 billion euro. So we understand that we have to expand our market, and we should find a place for everybody. Even if each company will grow 10 times, we'll still have what to do and will be able to make our portfolio as big as that of Poland, because there are already certain initiatives that enable us to increase our sales and accessibility of our services for our clients. Definitely we're in favor of it because it's in our general interests and we have the same interests. Thank you. And I think this should be our general message. Well, we shall have this need for recovery and need for capital investments, and this bridge to leasing is very logical here. So we should have this dialogue with the bank community. If we deal with these issues, we have to do something about it. So we have to coordinate this economic policy and the way the financial sector is going to provide its services. So we'll try to address some targeted points. So are you ready to prepare certain proposals in a written form? Probably, Ludmila, you have had some specific proposals to the National Bank. Probably you put them in writing, and let's discuss them at the level of association first, and later we can talk to the National Bank.
And now I would like to give the floor to the audience. You may ask your questions, you may present your comments, and I think that we still have 5 or 10 minutes for that, and then we will do the wrap-up. If you also still want to comment something and show a couple of slides, okay, please, you're welcome. But in the meantime, while we're looking for the slides, maybe some people from the audience would like to have their say, because we have an open discussion. It's not just the speakers talking. I would like to make my comments. The discussion is really interesting, and I came to particularly like one implicit element mentioned. When we are talking about the problems of the market, these are mainly excessive regulation, lack of funding, and it's good that companies are looking for the ways to engage some finance. But in fact, while talking to businesses, to SMEs, a year ago, we heard different things. It was about lack of consumers, lack of customers, or lack of clients. And not a single company has mentioned that today. So this means that we do have clients. We have people to provide services to and to sell services to. You communicate with businesses and you show that there is demand, because none of you has mentioned that there is lack of demand. But on the other hand, we really need to work on the finance, because to be honest, the banking market is living only through this program 5 and 7, 9 as far as loans are concerned. So we need to work with the regulator, with the Entrepreneurship Development Fund and international financial institutions and donors towards reduction of the cost of finance for leasing companies, because this is a money that directly flows into the economy, in particular into the part of the economy that is in the highest demand now. That's important for the state and for the economic activity of the state. Thank you for this question or comment. It's a comment, I would say. Well, I could probably continue with the same idea. It's really true. Well, of course, demand is there, and demand is the basis for business. But you've been writing saying that I, as the owner and director of the company, can tell that I always say that there is lack of clients. So even if demand is high, I will always keep saying that we don't have a sufficient number of clients, because we have got some plans and we set some bars and we meet those bars and then we raise the bar. And all the things we are discussing are interrelated. We remember it back from our educational institutions that there is a curve of demand and supply. For demand to appear, there must be some supply. So leasing companies should take their efforts to create the sort of supply that would always urge increasing demand. And our mission is to work on that. That's why, for us, the primary task is about that. Well, we have finance programs, and definitely then we are reaching this stage, and the demand will go higher. We've got some more slides, and you could take 2 additional minutes, and probably somebody will have their say from the audience as well. Then, well, please, next slide. So, it's all about the executive authorities and legislative authorities. We need to provide tax incentives for capital investment, which come with the help of financial leasing. You just have to use the word benefits, probably not to use the word benefits, but provide and use the word financial incentives or tax incentives. Why not now? It's necessary to give some preferences, so to provide those tax incentives for capital investment. This is urgent. This is to be done not for us, not for leasing companies. Let the tax incentives go to the end lessees that do some acquisition using the leasing finance. They make acquisitions of fixed assets. Let it be that way. We will be happy about that situation. And we will be grateful because that is another contribution to the development of the leasing business. And if you improve the regulatory framework protecting the rights of lessors, well, this item has been covered by my colleague Anton, so I don't have anything to add, but we need to focus on that. I'm talking about trouble assets, non-performing liabilities, and we have people who don't give the objects, the facilities back, and don't pay the money. So one of those things has to be arranged. I'm not talking now about the people where the objects have been lost, where business has been affected, where everything has been destroyed. It's a different story. But I'm just talking about the people who have successfully moved. They are developing business in a different region or in the same region or abroad, and they are using those facilities, but they are not paying for that. So we should focus on that. And Anton has told us how this is regulated in other countries, and we need to also work on that matter here in parallel with the development of our business. That's it, right? Well, I just thought that probably my colleagues would like to have their say. Well, we have discussed this information. There are some 2 items here. Do you know where international institutions could also be involved? They could provide guarantees to creditors. I don't know whether you are giving such guarantees or not. Well, we do not give any credit guarantees. But we have DFC, and DFC, even before the war, was interested in Ukrainian leasing companies. Of course, these tickets are too small for them. That's why I raised the question about some pool. Well, the conditions are different. I cannot be talking about DFC now, but we have this tool, and Ukrainian banks could be using this opportunity. Yes, and please share your contacts, the contacts of other international financial institutions, and keep telling IFIs that we have such businesses here in Ukraine. It seems to me that it's only us who are telling this story. Here is the comment, Valery. I would like to express my gratitude for this discussion to all of you because I've heard about some information about certain disbalances. And by the way, the Affordable Financial Leasing Program has been actively promoted by the Entrepreneurship Development Fund, because we could see that thanks to this 579 program, a great balance appeared in the market, and the banks had much better conditions of finance, so we introduced this program. And I've forgotten to mention that the financial leasing program was also developed jointly with the USAID project. Yes, I do remember that well. It was Volodymyr Kuzyo, Deputy Minister of Economy. Yes, it was by no accident. And what I'm trying to lead it at is that leasing companies and banks are very active. And suppose there are any proposals, they keep addressing us, and we try to take their information into account, because we want this program to be fully operating. So I suggest that you do the same. I've heard about some items, about some issues that within our program we could somehow use and minimize the risks. We could try and arrange very good things. And our fund is associated with 579 program, but in fact we are also implementing other credit programs when we are giving resources. And the latest programs have got leasing companies in our target audience. That's why, while having negotiations with our partners, we discuss a lot of proposals concerning considering you as our partners. This is the donor money, and the opportunity will also be provided within that program for leasing companies as well, right? Yes, the latest program sponsored by the government of Germany, hedged by the EU, and banks and leasing companies are included into the target audience for that program. So we will keep developing this for the future. Great news. Well, sometimes you just need to speak and you will find out a lot of interesting things. Thank you. Thanks to everyone for your attention. If there are no more comments, thank you for participation, for your involvement, and let's stay in touch. Let's keep working, and let's also have some informal networking. Thanks to everyone.